Welcome back to my YouTube channel, my dear friends. Please subscribe to my channel and also please give your valuable comments. Now, in the last class, we are discussing about Rajayakshma, and today we will discuss the pathological consequence of development of immunocompromisation. A state which is most difficult to treat amongst all the clinical condition is called as Shosha or Rajayakshma. Rajayakshma is called as Roga Raja, okay? So therefore it is a combination of many disorders. There will be multiple system involvement, and that is a stage which is very difficult to treat. Now, digestion and metabolism of the food is actually the key factor which maintains the normal physiological and biochemical functions of the body. We know that. So food is considered as Bahya Prana, so that has to be taken inside. So that will going to nourish the Anta Prana as per Sushruta. Now, metabolism of the individual contents of the food with the formation of their end product is a requirement for maintaining the healthy status of the person. Everybody knows this. Now, carbohydrate metabolism, which yields the glucose as an end product, and it acts as a major cause of energy. Okay, this is the one. Carbohydrate is the one which provides major energy in the form of ATP and energy. So therefore, our food should contain more amount of the carbohydrate. The reason is, so carbohydrates will be giving more ATPs. Similarly, certain biochemical events of the body, certain body cells cannot live without glucose. We know that. How much glucose is important. Taking from RBC, starting from the RBC, then retina, nerve cells. So they always want the carbohydrate source, glucose, for all their functioning. Okay. Certain body tissues like brain, nerves, retina, RBC, kidney cells exclusively use the glucose for all the functions. Okay, carbohydrate derived glucose for all the functions. So disturbances of the glucose metabolism adversely affects the whole body, and when the same is continued for a long time, it gives the body homeostasis. This is the point number one. Okay, so how in case of Rajayakshama we get into the stage of immunocompromisation? Suppose our food is not having good amount of the carbohydrate, then what are the complications which occur in a long term? Okay, almost all the same thing also occur in case of diabetes. In diabetes 2, actually the cell is not sensitive for the glucose to entry, although there is good amount of the insulin in diabetes 2. So cell is deprived of glucose, and because of that so many intracellular changes takes place, and there will be the utilization of the fatty material that leads to again ketoacidosis and all those things. So we know that. So now this glucose is very important. When such conditions, when it is continued for a longer time, then the body badly suffer. Similarly, you take another important content of the food, that is protein. So similarly, the protein metabolism also plays a major role in body immune system or body maintenance, homeostasis, because all the enzymes, hormones, intrinsic factors, the cells and then muscular cells, immune cells, even the antibodies, and are basically nothing but protein. They are all made up of protein. Okay, so everything in the body is made up of protein, because protein is called as building blocks of the body. Muscle you take, and nerve cells, they are also made up of proteins. Okay, then RBC made up of proteins, then WBC, immune cells, all the antibodies, intrinsic factors, enzymes, hormones, all are proteins. So without protein you cannot imagine the body functioning. Now, disturbance in the metabolism of the protein in the body, that leads to loss of body tissues, because protein is we know that it's a building blocks, and the production of excessive metabolic waste, which is toxic. Now, this is very important. When the proteins are undergoing catabolized, suppose proteins are catabolized, then they are basically the nitrogen containing products. Amino acids are nitrogen containing products. Now, a lot of ammonia is also formed, or nitrogen wastes are also formed. Now it's very challenging to manage this nitrogen load, okay, because it's toxic. Therefore body has to convert it into then ammonia, then it has to be converted into urea and uric acid, etc. So therefore, if such proteins are not provided to the body, two things occur. One is body building will be get affected, and immune cells are also proteins, and there is no formation of the proteins immune cells also. This is what is happening exactly in case of protein energy malnutrition. Okay, a child with the protein energy malnutrition is immunologically very poor and prone to many infections. The reason is there is no protein. When there is no protein, there is no immune cells also. Okay, so another important content is that's the one point. Another is when the proteins are excessively used, because proteins are not for the daily usage. Proteins are for the building blocks of the body. They are for the bodybuilding. But some conditions there may be proteins are used for the body, because in case of PM we know carbohydrate is not available, fat is not available, then there is no way to the body, it will go into use the proteins only. So when such proteins are used, some amount of energy may be available, but it releases a lot of nitrogenous waste product, and handling of this nitrogenous waste product itself is a challenge to the liver. Okay, and that may itself leads to uremia-like condition. That's a different issue. Anyway, another content is fat, which is present in the food. So fats are insulating substances. We know that they are made up of lipids. Lipids are very important because cell membrane of each and every cell is made up of lipid, phospholipids. So and we know that one molecule of the fat gives us 9 calories. So highly caloric substance. Now our food should contain all these three in the required amount. Okay, so when this is not happening, child may be taking good amount of food, it is not get digested, one issues, or child is not at all taking the nutritious food, or child is not at all taking the complete food or balanced food, then all these consequences are possible. Now when the fat, the last what you are talking, the fat, when the fat is not proper, or the utilization of the fat, if it is more, suppose, then there will be disturbed beta oxidation cycle, which leads to production of the ketone bodies. Okay, and there is depleted lipids, fatty acid, disturbs the formation of the cell membrane itself. Now minerals and vitamins will also act as catalysts. We know that the food should contain the minerals and vitamins also, because they are the facts which act as a catalyst, cofactor, coenzymes, and all the metabolic activities of the pathways. We know that there are thousands of metabolic pathways in the body, and each metabolic pathway is guided by some of the cofactors, intrinsic factors, etc. And basically these intrinsic factors, cofactors, are nothing but vitamins and minerals. Some of the metabolic reactions are copper mediated, some of them are manganese mediated, some of them are iron mediated, zinc mediated. Such metabolic pathways are there. Now in total, the disturbed body cellular metabolism leads to less caloric availability, decreased immunity, and reduced functional capacity, and depleted body structure, and also easy vulnerability for the disorders. Now, so ultimately, due to the consumption of different causative factors like physical, immunological, cachexic, and as well as dietary, for a long time, we have summarized all, and there will be disturbance in the body metabolism. So you may talk about immunological, physical, or cachexic, physical or caloric related, and cachexic or dietary. Ultimately, when it continues for a long time, such disturbances, so there will be disturbed metabolism. So this disturbed metabolism leads to the stage of immunocompromisation that we have seen. So as all the disorders are basically due to the disturbance of the pitta, Agni, what Ayurveda says, Agni is a root cause, metabolism, okay, metabolic power. So here, the disturbed metabolism also, there will be disturbed functioning of the Kaya Agni, Dhatu Agni, and Bhuta Agni. Okay, so when I say metabolism, that is taken place by the Agni or Pitta, and when this metabolism itself is get disturbed, because see, a good metabolism is very important for the production of the heat in the body. Okay, so because end products of the metabolism, end products along with there will be heat and energy. So one thing is a good metabolism itself nourishes the body Agni. Okay, so when this metabolism is disturbed, then ultimately it will go to disturb the Kaya Agni, Dhatu Agni, and as well as Bhuta Agni. Now, in the context of Rajayakshama, in the first two lines of the shloka explains the normal digestion and metabolism which takes place in the digestive tract and cell. If you look into Vishamashana and Rajayakshama, it's very clearly mentioned. So, even in the definition also, Shrotasam Sanirodascha, Raktadinancha Sankshiyat, Dhatu Ushmanacha Apachayat, Rajayakshama Pravartate. So, in the normalcy, it is responsible for the body tissues or cell tissues, organ and a body growth by using the end products of carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism. Once there is an obstruction or hindrance for this normal process, Shrotasam Sanirodascha, okay, the protein metabolism is disturbed, fat metabolism is disturbed, carbohydrate metabolism is disturbed, Shrotasam Sanirodascha. Ultimately, what happens? Raktadinanja Sankshiyat. There is no formation of the Raktadi Dhatus. Tissues, bodily tissues. Dhatu Ushmana Apachayat. There will be also disturbance of the cellular metabolism. Dhatu Ushmana Apachayat. And that itself in the long term leads to Rajayakshama Pravartate. Now, Aharasa is not formed as there is obstruction to the Shrotas, the same thing what I have explained so far. So Shrotas contain the Aharasa, which is Shrotas is nothing but Pranamam Apadhyamana Dhatunam Abhivahini Bhavanti. So Shrotas contain the Aharasa, which is undergoing continuous biotransformation to yield the different dhatus. We know that. So as Aharasa is not formed or its normal movement is affected, then subsequent dhatus are not formed. When the Shukra Dhatu is not formed, then there is no Ojas again. Yes, hence there will be depletion of the Rasa, Rakta, etc. Dhatus. Now, pathological sequences of immunocompromisation. As glucose, amino acid and fatty acids are not available at the cellular level for the cellular metabolism through the different pathways, and there is improper cellular metabolism which leads to disturbed glycolysis, beta oxidation pathway and transamination pathway cycle. Now this leads to the decreased energy and ATP formation. I am explaining the same Shrotasam Sanirodasya, ATP formation. So this is happening in the Dhatu Ushmana Chapajayat, last cellular metabolism. This leads to decreased energy and ATP formation with the disturbed heat regulation. Now, enzymes, intrinsic factors, cellular enzymes, functions are decreased, leading to less production of the body tissues and more production of the waste products. Okay, if you want an example here, the decreased protein metabolism due to the inherence of the transamination cycle, due to depleted cellular enzymes required for the same result in the production of more nitrogenous waste. Okay, so toxic stuff, nitrogenous waste is a toxic substance. It has to be handled very well with the less production of the amino acids, so leading to depletion of RNA, DNA, and ultimately resulting in the emaciation of the body. So you see, once there is no protein, proteins are nothing but amino acids. Different types of the amino acids are required for the formation of the body, even for the DNA, RNA, etc. The proteins are required. So when this is not happening because of the protein loss or improper protein metabolism, definitely the cell division itself is get affected. Okay, so that may lead to a chronic disease like Rajayakshma, which is nothing but immunocompromised state. Similarly, the disturbed carbohydrate metabolism with the deficiency of the cellular enzymes of the glycolytic pathway, if it is get affected, it leads to production of more lactic acid with a less amount of the ATP. We know that lactic acid has to be converted into pyruvic acid and so many things because it is also toxic. Now, thus the tissue formation will be less. Once these three metabolic, Shrotasam Sandhirodasya, when these three metabolic pathways are get affected, ultimately the tissue formation itself is less. Hence, amount of the Shukra Dhatu which is formed less, and as a result, there is less formation of the Ojas. And that is the root cause of immunocompromised state. So, decreased Ojas slowly lands in an immunocompromised state. Now, Sarva Dhatu Kshaya, that leads to the decreased body bulk, muscles, etc. So, bodily tissues are utilized to produce the energy. Okay, so this leads to Dhatu Kshaya with the general debility. So, as the body is vulnerable to many infections in the state of immunocompromised state, that is Ojo Kshaya, the repeated infections leads to emaciation. Now, already there is Ojo Kshaya, so body is more vulnerable for the infections. After the infection again the body growth gets flattered. Okay, and ultimately when this repeats for many times, there will be emaciation. So emaciation, when not treated properly, leads to immunocompromised state. So that is nothing but Rajayakshma, where person is prone to many disorders. So with this we conclude today. In the next class we will continue the same. Thank you very much for being with me. Thank you.